Welcome back, everybody. Derek Sue, your East Oakland advocate. Well, you see that boat wreck? That happened July 30th of 2005. And that was a $2.1 million loss. That's just the boat. And I was called out the night before. And I was to take pictures, video, and document as much of the recovery and salvage operation of that 51-foot Sea Ray. And that Sea Ray, the owner lived in Lafayette. He was a very high-profile personal injury lawyer, and he had taken his daughter. It was her birthday, and he took his daughter and her friends out on the bay for a party on the boat, and they're cruising. And one of the things that I want to tell you folks, just because you have money or you made a lot of money doesn't mean that you have a lot of smarts or common sense. In this case, the boat owner, while he was highly educated, he's a lawyer, he was stupid, he was inexperienced. He shouldn't have been behind the wheel of that boat because, number one, he didn't have a safety, a boater safety course under his belt, and he's taking passengers. And when that boat, that 51-foot Sea Ray hit that Oakland Middle Harbor seawall, and that seawall has existed for decades, and at times, because of the height of the water, you may not be able to see it. Well, in this case, the driver could not see it at all because it was at 9:30 at night. So driving, piloting a large vessel like that during the day takes enough skill. But driving at night is a whole different world. I've driven at night for a number of years, and I avoid it as much as possible. I try and get back to the dock or the launch ramp before sundown because I don't like driving in the dark. While my boat, my 26-foot boat, I equipped with special marine headlights, and that allows me to drive at night, much like a car. And so it had two high-powered lights on the bow, and it would light up the whatever was in front of me. Not that it did a good job, but if there were markers, reflectors, even other boats out there, I could easily see it with these headlights on there. And so it was a very specialized boat. I got the call near midnight because rescue operations were already underway. The boat had crashed at 9:30 at night. It was doing 28 miles an hour according to the electronics on board. Once we did investigation, also USCG Coast Guard did the investigation, the overall investigation, found that this person, the driver, the lawyer, ignored all of the warning alarms that were tripped by the onboard electronics, the GPS, the chart plotter, and then also at the last second, the radar. And the radar, while it wasn't showing anything because it was barely sticking out of the water at the time that the tide had come in, but it showed on the chart plotter this barrier. Even though he couldn't see it, he plowed ahead at 28 miles an hour, which The boat, it lifted the boat out of the water, as you see, and it literally sheared 8 feet of hull right off of that boat. I mean, 8 feet of the bottom of the hull of the boat is gone. And so the Coast Guard had to put flotation devices to keep the boat from sinking into the Oakland estuary. While it wasn't real deep there, it would make recovery efforts and salvage efforts much more difficult. As you see it, by the next morning, the boat's insurer had already put in place a recovery and salvage team, which was recovering the boat and removing it from that water break wall. And I was out there to document with pictures and video if it was needed for the court case, the pending court case that would be coming up, because the arrogant lawyer would not accept fault, because he knew if he accepted fault, because of all the injuries, the children, all of the 9 children sustained very serious injuries, broken legs, broken arms, concussions, bruises, scrapes, scratches, and one had nearly lost her eye in the event with the sudden crash and the sudden stop, which threw the children, a distance inside of the boat. Also, 4 adults were hospitalized for their injuries, and what made the situation even worse was that it was not near shore. And so if you're familiar with Oakland's Middle Harbor, that breakwater is not near land. And the closest portion to where that sat was about 100 yards. And so boats had to be brought in to rescue all of the passengers, to get them to shore, which they, rather than, because there's no provision for docking at Oakland Middle Harbor, so they had to take them all the way to Jack London Square, which is a ride down the estuary with the high-speed rescue boats from the Coast Guard. And then that's where they were picked up by ambulance and taken to either Oakland Children's Hospital or Highland for those injuries. But it was real clear that the driver, the owner, the lawyer, the personal injury lawyer, was fully at fault, but yet he tried to blame somebody else to try and save his butt, because he was in very serious financial straits right here, because all of those parents of those children are going to sue for child endangerment, reckless driving. I mean, he was charged a whole bunch of charges by the United States Coast Guard, because a boating accident does not get adjudicated on land with typical courts or with police departments. This is a maritime issue. Different laws and different regulations apply here. And so the U.S. Coast Guard plus the Maritime Academy oversees this and oversees the punishment to this lawyer. And so when they found him fully guilty and fully at fault for all the injuries and lacking the experience, not having the certifications to drive such a large, heavy vessel, and then drive it in a reckless manner, ignoring warnings and alarms. So he got sued, and 2 years, it was about 3 years later, he ended up filing for bankruptcy. He lost his business, lost his home, lost all his property. And why? Because he was such a jerk. He didn't think that he could be sued and lose everything. He didn't carry enough insurance. I carried all sorts of insurance, plus a a $5 million umbrella policy, and that covered, all of my boating. If I brought people out, they were covered on this. In this case, that lawyer, he only had boating insurance to $500,000. Well, and then also that's his liability. But then he was required to have that insurance because he had a loan on that boat, and so he didn't own that boat outright. He was making payments, and when you make payments, you have to carry full coverage. And so maximum coverage in the boating industry, pretty much for a liability, is $500,000. You can buy more if you're willing to spend that kind of money, but in my case, for that maximum policy, only ran me about $449 annually, and that was for 3 boats. So boat insurance is much different than car insurance, home insurance, but your home, your boat can be qualified tax exemption, which was what our 30-footer was. It was our second home, our vacation home, that was tax deductible. But we carried plenty of insurance. There's also, as the boats get bigger, there are different requirements for necessary safety equipment. And this individual did not have all of those required elements on board his boat. So he was punished by the Maritime Academy and banned from ever owning or registering another vessel or boat in the United States ever again. A lifetime ban because of the injuries that were sustained in that accident. But, one of the sad things is that there are a lot of boaters out on the water that don't carry insurance because in California, if you own the boat outright, you own it free and clear, no encumbrance on there. You are not required to carry insurance on the boat, none whatsoever, which is stupid. And you have insurance on your car, you should have insurance on your boat, because out on the boat, a lot more can happen, and things here in California, if you're in an accident, you are responsible for the environmental damage, the cleanup that your fuel and oil caused to the lake or waterway. And you are required by law to carry a $500,000 environmental protection policy in all states, and especially here in California. So I always had that in place, and fortunately that boat didn't leak fuel, because a vessel like that holds nearly 400 gallons of diesel fuel, so that could have been a real economic disaster or ecological disaster right here close to the Oakland estuary, right in the mouth of the Oakland estuary, in fact, and close to a very sensitive marine sanctuary and habitat right over in Emeryville. And that is a sanctuary for mud shrimp, California mud shrimp, Pacific mud shrimp, blue mud shrimp. And so that's a sanctuary over there right outside the Emeryville marina. There's also another extension of that which runs parallel to the Oakland shoreline from Alameda all the way down to the Oakland airport. It is a marine sanctuary for Pacific mud shrimp. It is illegal to go into that area. You cannot harvest or possess Pacific blue mud shrimp for any reason. But that's also why I go down to that area to fish during sturgeon season, because the sturgeon are seeking out those blue mud shrimp. And that's I get blue mud shrimp from the state of Oregon and Washington. And also I use grass shrimp. And that if it's still herring in the area, I try and get herring roe off the pier pilings, or frozen herring to use as bait. So, but anyway, boating safety is important. That happened July 30th, 2005. It was a disaster for everybody. That personal injury lawyer, he, like I said, lost everything. His entire life was changed by ignorance. And just because you have money doesn't mean that you get a pass in life. I was glad to see that he was not allowed an exit, and so the Maritime Academy and United States Coast Guard found him fully at fault for that accident that had very serious injuries and could have caused some deaths. So happy holidays, happy 4th of July. Stay safe, folks. If you're a boater, don't be in a hurry. Take your time this weekend. Happy 4th of July, everybody.